Hello, and welcome to this edition of Magic in Mind. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham, and this evening I'm going to be talking to you about why healers need to specialise. And you might be thinking that I'm going to be saying to you, you need to connect with your purpose. Your purpose might be to be a Reiki master, or to be a rune healer, or to go out there into the world and find a group of people. There might be a cause that is there and it's connected in, and once you've found your destiny and your fate, then everything's going to be okay in the world. But that's not what we're going to be doing in this session. We're going to be taking a little bit of a different angle from that in this session. I'm going to start by recognizing that the archetype of the healer is one of the most ancient archetypes in the world. We know about burial mounds, and we know about archaeological finds that show that healing was taking place, that bone setting was taking place for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, which is a wonderful thing. The figure of the healer is well recognized, but it can also mean that we make assumptions about what it means to be a healer. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time disrupting that with you to start us off. So I'd like you to imagine an ancient healer. They're not an ancient healer. They're not like a little wizened person. They could be any age, wherever they're going. But back in ancient times, and we're talking about someone who is tending to the needs of a small group. A small group of people. They know them really well. They knew their parents. They knew their parents' parents. There's very little movement. They've had homesteads that have been passed down. If they have homesteads at all, they might be nomads. They might be moving across the land. They have a deep connection to the land, and they follow the passages and the roots of the land. Maybe they follow migrating herds, and they know the ecosystem. They know the ecology of the land on which they live. They know the cycles of the weather. They don't listen to the news, or they don't look on their phone to find out what's happening with the weather. They go out and they see it, and they read the stars. And the skies are much clearer at this point in time than for us, where we have the lights that can dim our ability to see the stars. And for this healer, they have cares and responsibilities. They might be out searching for healing herbs as they travel with their community. They might know where those are, and they might gather them and dry them, or turn them into tinctures as they're traveling. They may well be caring for expectant mothers and times when birthing is happening. They may tend to wounds if those occur. They're probably hunter-gatherers, and so that can happen. It's not it might be a simple life in some way, but it's not a straightforward life necessarily. But they also know times of peace and of rest. The winter times when they sort of huddle in together, and there isn't so much that can be done in terms of hunting and gathering, and they're relying on the what they've gathered through the course of the year. The long nights, when not much can be done, they might at that point bring out their healing skills through story that they tell and share with the tribe. They might be reading the dynamics of the people and saying, oh, what's off there? They might start to be real sort of mind healers. And so they might be healers of the body. They might be healers of the people. They might also be readers of the weather, or I can feel the storm is coming. And there are still people who can do that to this day. Can tell that some sort of disruption is happening or occurring. And they can do all of these things, and they also have times of rest, of deep rest. And for me, the key thing about the healer is that the healer is a reader and an operator of systems. There could be ecosystems, there could be systems of community, there could be systems of the body, there can be systems of the mind. There could be systems of the weather, there could be systems of the land, ecological systems. And this is one of the things that I think is really, really key, that we can sort of think, oh, this is what I picture in my mind as a healer. And I think it's broader than that. And for those healers, it was possible to generalize. It was possible to be, the relied upon person in the community who, when there was something wrong, when there was disharmony in any of the systems that the community was working with and operating within during the course of their lifetimes, then they might have one or maybe two people who were very, very sensitive to those systems and could work with them. That was certainly a possibility. And I want you to contrast that with today and healers operating today. So first of all, there's a lot more people. There's a lot more people. We don't have little communities where we know everybody, or certainly not in the Western world, or in like large towns where I live. I certainly do not know anyone in my town by any. I know anyone. I know everyone in my town by any means. There's lots more people, and there are a lot more systems. We're not just looking at the weather now. We're looking at systems of roads that have been created and put across the land. We're looking at systems of drainage. We're looking at technological systems, engineering, computers. We're looking at systems of language, complex systems of language that have developed through which we convey meaning. The list could go on and on and on of the number of different systems that are operating around us, that our communities interact with and work with and rely on now, bearing in mind that the healer is still going to be attempting to fulfill that function of bringing healing, of having that deep sensitivity to those systems and being able to recognize when something's off in one or more of them. There's also going to be more overwhelm. Because of those systems in partner, because of those systems, there's just so much going on. If you are a natural healer, and it might be that you've done my Discover Your Magic quiz and actually healer is my strongest type, but all of us have all 5 parts of the magical self present. And certainly the work that I do with people is to raise up all 5 of them. That's, the path to power. So we can become incredibly sensitive to all of those systems operating around us and to all the things that might need to be fixed or improved or enhanced in some way, and it becomes almost impossible. But it's also that there are no periods of deep rest. There are no periods where everything has been done. There are no periods where there isn't someone in the very large communities within which we exist who is in distress, who has disease, who is wounded in some way. There are no periods of time when there aren't systems that require fixing or tweaking. And there are also all of the side effects of those systems. It is louder. There is more clutter everywhere. If you're someone who's sensitive to EMF, that's going on all the time. So it is much, much harder in many ways, not in other ways, to be a healer now than it was in the past. We have a different set of challenges, and this is what I think is important at this point. And this is why I named this session what I did, where I said this is why it is that healers need to specialise. And it's not because healers have changed. It's because the systems within which we operate have changed. And the healer's radar, let's call it. I want you to imagine that as a healer, you are always tuned into your environment. Always tuned into your environment. That's your job. Whether you like it or not. You might say that we're programmed to do that. Some of us, just have the healing instincts there. Others of us might need to develop those. And it's like this little alarm that goes off. Boop, boop, over there, over there, over there. Need to sort out that piece. Need to sort that out. And then the healer has this instinct. I have an instinct. If I can fix it, then the little siren wail, the little niggle, the little thing that says something's wrong, something's wrong, something's broken, will stop. You know? And that's the way that our ancestors have operated for generations, for countless generations. I might not yet know what the cause is. I might not have all of the, the modern medicine. I've got plenty of other forms of medicine, of healing available to me. But what I do have is a strong instinct to work on bringing the system that is my specialist field, or still my specialist field now, all the systems that I function within and my community functions within, back into harmony, back into equilibrium. That is the instinct of the healer working all of the time. So at the moment, with more systems that are operating all around us, we are going to go into overwhelm far more quickly. Now, this is why I developed my program, Amplify Your Magic, was because I realised that the tools that the people that I work with and that I need, that I need to support me as an energetically connected, as a spiritually awake and a purpose-driven human being, born into a culture that had actually created a lot of these problems. They weren't there, and I needed them to be there. I needed them to be there. The people who I work with are magnificent, wonderful people, who want to make a difference in the world and have fabulous tools available to them, amazing instincts for healing and oracular work and visioning and change making, all of those things. And yet we've also got all of the problems, which I've just described one of them for you, for those of us who are attuned as healers. So what I wanted to share with you this evening is a tool that I developed as part of the Amplify program. So it's in one of the modules that I offer for the healer, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a taster of that today for you to use, which I hope that you will find helpful today, which talks about how do we go about finding a specialism. You remember that I said at the beginning, what I'm not going to do is to say your purpose is to be a fabulous crystal healer. Maybe you are already a fabulous crystal healer. It's a different way of working. Is the tool that I'm going to give you. So if you've got a piece of paper, that's good. And I'm going to invite you to write down on your piece of paper, divide it into 4 quadrants. And we're going to label those quadrants. So at the top of the first quadrant, I want you to write the words self-care. Self-care. This is the first specialist field that anyone who is a natural healer in the modern world needs to master. For all of the reasons that I have just given you. Because if you want to go out there into the world, and if you are a natural healer, it's incredibly difficult to just shut off those instincts, and you're basically sort of trying to divide yourself from yourself to do that, then one of the systems that you're going to need to master is your own system of self-care. And we're going to take quite a radical approach to this. We can look at all of the things that we do around self-care, and there's lots of stuff. There's like mindfulness and well-being and exercise and all of those things. But I want you to think about this and say, okay, imagine to yourself, I am a natural healer, and I am gifted with the instincts. In this case, self-care is a gift that is given to the healer by another part of the magical self, and that self is your seer. So this is about instinctively what feels like important self-care activities for you. So it's not about going and getting an app that's going to sort of take you through a 10, 12-step program to bring you into health and fitness and those sorts of things. It's not that. It's not about trying to master a particular healing craft. It's about saying actually what is required is mastery of your own ecosystem, of your mind, your body, your emotions, your spirit. So this is a starting point. So what you want to think about is what are the activities that you need that support you in rest? So they support deep rest. When do you feel totally rested? What does peace feel like to you? Where are you? Where does that go? How does that calm feel like, that tranquility feel like that time when you come away and you think, actually, I feel rested? And what are the activities that offer replenishment, which is different? So replenishment brings your energy levels up. So if you're in a state of total overwhelm, then it might be that it's like, I need to retreat, I need to be in a darkened room, I need to have the curtains drawn, I need to have total silence, or I need to have the sound of the rain or the sea playing as I go, and I have my essential oils, whatever it is that you need in order to rest. So that's one part of this mastery of self-care. And the second one I'm going to offer to you is that sense of replenishment. What is it that you do that then makes you feel that you come away feeling more energized? So for me, it's going out into nature, my bare feet on the earth, maybe going and hugging a tree. I'm really into that. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is to think about this from the perspective of thinking, if my seer self, my instinctive, intuitive self, were to work with and offer a gift to my healer self, what would I place in that self-care category right now? Okay, and as a bonus for this exercise, this is only a bonus if you want to go there, you might want to think about, bearing in mind that healers specialise in systems, is what systems do these activities, particularly the replenishment ones, what systems do these nourish? So you might think about this in terms of what nourishes my mind, what nourishes my body, what nourishes my emotional ecosystem, what nourishes my spiritual system. Because we're starting to get into a systems thinking. You might not like the term system, it might make you think about computers a little bit. You can think about ecosystem, if you like, sort of interwoven tapestry of being and how it operates. But you get what I mean. So this is thinking about just bringing our healing self a little bit of, so yes, I'm actually working on these systems as I do it. So that's your quadrant 1. And if you do nothing else, if you take nothing else from this session, I would like you to take away that the foundational specialism for any healer is self-care, and that you are the master of that, of what that means for you. Like I said, this is a taster. There's a lot more that I offer through Amplify, but I hope this is very helpful for you in thinking about yourself as a healer. Up now on your second quadrant, I'd like you to write the word play. Okay? And this is the gift from the mystic self to the healer. This is about finding out what you love. It used to be possible for healers to be generalist healers for their community. For them to be able to say, and I'm sensitive to all of the nuances and the subtleties of the different systems that were happening. That's partially because they were limited to a certain extent. You couldn't get on a plane or on a giant cruise ship or anything like that. You weren't going to travel a really long distance in your lifetime. You weren't going to have to master a huge swathe of land. Different soil types and things like that, what's going on there, different tree types and plants. You weren't going to have to do that. Change was incredibly slow. I mean, look at the difference in the way that humanity lives, like from the last 200 years even. The systems that were supporting us were evolving incredibly slowly. I'm not saying that they weren't very important, they really, really were. But it was possible for healers to be generalists in a way that it simply is not now. There are too many systems. And so being able to say, okay, where am I going to focus my healing abilities is important. And the space for really feeling into that, for me, is a space of play. Our education systems today don't really foster play. They foster the realm of the sage. Which is great. We love the realm of the sage. That's no problem. But the realm of the mystic is the realm of imagination and enjoyment and pleasure and possibility. And so this is about thinking to yourself, what activities do I spend my time on in my life? And it could be at home, it could be at work, it could be in your community, it could be when you go on holiday, whatever it is, that I love, that feel like play to me. And what I would say is this. My belief, and this is my personal belief, is that each of us has come to this time, this place in the world with a purpose. But that isn't a hard purpose. It's not a you will go and you will fulfill this destiny that's really, really hard and you have to slog up the mountain in order to do it. Don't worry, there'll be a slog anyway. But the first point is that it will be something that we love. You know, what if the desire that was nestled in the deepest, deepest caves of your magnificent heart was the thing that you were here to support and work with? And so exploring where you like to play, you know, what feels pleasurable and easeful, and then say, okay, that could well be my purpose. That could well be where I find my specialist field. That place that comes more easefully is a really key part here. For me, it was when I realised that I spent a number of years offering healings to all sorts of different people, and it took me a long time to realise that there's actually quite a specific point in the healing journey. And I say that like this because healing can encompass such a vast thing. For me, I work less with people who are in a place where the self-care, where there's like deep woundings and you're sort of flat on the ground just saying I can't do anything. Now, there are healers out there who do amazing work like that. And then for me, my work comes a little bit later with people when they're feeling into, okay, I'm not working with the right ecosystems. How do I find the right ecosystems, Maggie? You know, that's my specialist field, is helping people to find their purpose and to claim wholeness. You know, that's what I do. And when I realised that, I was like, yeah, when I work with those clients, it feels like play and it feels brilliant. And I have those moments where it feels like fireworks are going off in my chest, you know? So have a feeling, have a feel into that. Now again, for bonus points, you might think about this in a systems way, and you might think, okay, so what systems am I working with when I'm in that zone of play? And for me, I think about this as being sort of meaning and story. Now, all of these things come through. I'm like, okay, yeah. I work with people, and I use meaning, and I use story, and I use narrative, and things like runic astrology. Wasn't planning on that one, you know, but it came through. I was like, yeah, it just feels good. What systems am I working with? Like that sense of stargazing and finding meaning and playing with fate and purpose, and all of these for me, I realise these are my specialist fields. You know, they feel like play. So that's your second area or second quadrant to play with them, the gift that the mystic offers the healer. Our third gift comes from the magician self, and it is boundaries. So if we know this is what I need in order to look after myself, to be in a space where I am caring for myself, and if we know this is the space where I love to be in play, I feel like, yeah, this is where I'm starting to really explore what my field might be. Then you get to the point of saying, well, how do I maintain the boundaries around those so that I'm not falling into the instinctive, and it is an instinct there, the instinctive space of the healer who wants to fix everything. You know, how do I do that? How do I make sure that I don't give what I don't have? And that might be energy, but it might also be expertise. You know, we have got to a point now in our society where expertise is really important. And I just want to be really clear by this. I don't just mean expertise in terms of the sage. I don't mean knowledge. That's part of that. But this is also about wisdom and presence and intuition. You know, all of those different parts of the magical self, whether they come to the fore. You know, and then the magician puts in place those boundaries and guards those boundaries and supports the work of keeping us in our focus and keeping us in our chosen specialist fields. So on this quadrant, I'd like you to have a play into which boundaries do I regularly let slip? You know, I might know what they are, and so it's actually just starting to bring some presence to them so that you can start to work on them. And if that's something where you realise, wow, you know, my boundaries are slipping a lot, then that might be a time when it's a good idea to reach out to me and say, can I have a one-to-one session with you, Maggie, so that we can look at boundaries? You know, get some help if you know that this is an area that you struggle with, because you are battling with instincts that have been created over generations. It just so happens that our world has evolved and we are evolving with it, but maybe a little bit more slowly. And we are reclaiming a lot of the navigational systems, the magical self, that we've lost, that we've lost, that for whatever reason our society didn't think was important, and now we've realised, I think we've left something important behind at this point. And you might think about this then when you've sort of started to look at, which boundaries do I let slip? If somebody calls up, and they need help right now, well, I always be the one who'll say, I'll go and I'll sort it out. Rather than saying, I will absolutely help you in any way that I can. I can't come right now, but let's see who else can, for example, might be one of them. Or this person is in distress, therefore, even if I have nothing, I'm still going to show up for them. I might not be the best person, but I'd feel really guilty if I didn't go anyway. Those sorts of things, just to feel into. When do I let those energetic boundaries slip? Is it the self-care piece? That is a massive one. If you've got loads of stuff to do in the day, is it the self-care that always goes? Because if that's the case, you are losing your foundation for your healer self every single day. If you're the person who solves all of the problems all of the time and is always the one who's attentive and making sure that everything's going on, then you're looking at, okay, so this is where I need to get some support on holding those boundaries. And the key for the sage helps with this a little bit as well. So it's that boundary keeping. So what I'd like you to think with for this is bonus points again. Which systems do my boundaries protect? So when my boundaries are strong, which systems are they protecting? So if it's the self-care system that's always coming down, then the boundary that's slipping is the boundary of the system of you. Which means that when people ask for the help that you're going to be offering is not the best help that you can give. And I know that might sound really harsh. You're like, what? Yes, you could be immensely helpful, but at some point you're going to burn out, or you're not going to have enough, or you're not going to be in the space where you're able to say, okay, I can really tune in to the underlying problem. It's a little bit like you get to the point where you might be able to put a sticking plaster on it, but your uber healer abilities of saying, what's the real problem here? How can I reach down and get to that nub? And they can't kick in. They can't kick in. We can't get into the depths where true transformation occurs. We might put a little sticking plaster on the pipe, or build a bypass around the road because it's too much hard work to then sort of try and change the whole infrastructure of the system because the town's got bigger, whatever that is. So our healer can't say, okay, what does the ecosystem need? They just say, what does the problem need? What does this immediate problem need is what they focus on. And actually their job is looking at ecosystems. I hope this is making sense for you. And so the boundaries are absolutely key, and that's the gift of the magician. And then finally, with the final gift, and this is the gift of the sage self. And this is the gift of humility. And I always want to give this with a little bit of a caveat, because I think that sometimes the word humility can be a little bit triggering. It can bring some meanings through that aren't necessarily intended. So for me, humility is the ability to own the things that we're really good at and to own the things that we're really not good at. It's both. It's being able to say, I understand my value, so I understand why the self-care is important. I understand that if I haven't been in that space of self-care, then I'm not going to be offering my best. I understand that there are more systems in the world than one healer can possibly ever deal with. And I understand that there are going to be some systems that my unique, fabulous, magical being is particularly attuned to and designed for. And if you've got those things, then you are in that space of humility. Okay. So for that one, with your humility quadrant, have a little bit of a space for playing and think about, what am I currently doing that I can imagine somebody else doing better? That person might not exist in your immediate sphere. It might be that you're picking up the pieces because you always have. And so you think, oh, if I don't do it, who will? But this is the question of sort of saying, am I doing things that are outside my zone of genius or my superpower area? And This can be a really tough one. Now, I know that I certainly needed a lot of support to move out of this one, to make the leaps that I needed to make into the next step from humility, which is the ability to delegate, the ability to ask for support and the ability to collaborate, to say, actually, I'm really good at dealing with people and working with people when they're on their healing journey, where they've done that piece, where they've moved out of exhaustion, and they've tackled a lot of their problems, and they're ready to bloom into their next phase. They're looking for that next thing. They're saying, yes, I'm ready to claim my magic. And that means that I'm going to say no to this person over here, even though they could use help. And so part of my job is to find other people who specialise in that area. And then those people are going to say, oh, this person doesn't need the amazing, deep healing work that I support them with to get them from on their knees to standing. What they need is to work with Maggie. And so we start to create an ecosystem of healers. And this is, I think, the evolution that needs to be taking place for healers, is recognizing that we can no longer operate as individuals. We must operate as an ecosystem, and that's your specialist field. So let's work on the assumption, when you feel into this place of humility, that there is an ecosystem out there waiting for you. Then we start to say, okay, how do we bring those in? How do we connect with those people? Those things come later, all of those how-tos. And this tool is about the sort of starting to identify. And you might want to think about that in terms of, again, look for the bonus points when we think about systems. I've mentioned some of the systems that I work with, that I think I work with the most powerfully. But you might also look at systems and go, these ones, no. So it's probably no secret that the system of time is not my area of mastery. No. Which, I work with rhythm, just to be clear. I work with rhythm. That's where I find my space. That's why I love runic astrology, and I love big, spacious trainings where we get to explore and delve. I'm not so good at the 10-minute sticking to time ones. I can stick to time in that sense, but calendars and dates and all of those sorts of things, no. Which is why I have a wonderful team who support me to do that, and that's why in my business infrastructure I need to have other people to do that. That's why I have software that does all of my bookings appointments, because if it was up to me, I could spend all of my time doing that bit and still get it wrong, and that's okay, because I'm part of an ecosystem, so I'm building my ecosystem. And so that's what we're looking at here. So you might say, okay, what are the systems that I'm going to claim my total ineptitude in? Hurrah! No, I will no longer do this. Total ineptitude at hoovering. No. I love a broom. Broom is my friend. Hoover. No. God, I can have more rows with the hoover within most other. Just seem to bash it about and it falls over all the time and I trip over it. It's ridiculous. So you could start to look at it in small ways as well. In my home, what are the things that I'm really good at? What's my zone of genius? What's not? And where can I start to delegate? Where can I start to support? And I'd like you to also bear in mind that our society has isolated us to a certain extent, has made us really move out of that space, those structures of interdependency that we had in small communities, and we need to be able to make communities that overlay with each other. That's why I love these spaces, virtual spaces where we can come together. There are people from all over the world now in my community, finding each other and building ecosystems together. So it's perfectly possible to do that. Okay, so that's your exercise for you to go away and to play with, to start to feel into, what are my specialisms? What are my specialist areas? Now, as I've mentioned already, if you feel like, oh no, this is really helpful for me, or you feel like actually even the task is difficult and it's brought up some stuff for me, then please do get in touch, because it might be that some one-to-one work with me or coming onto the Amplify program is your next best step to start to really nurture your healer self, or the other parts of your magical self. that's the answer that I have created to this problem using my specialist field, my specialist area. And I wanted to leave you with one thing at the end, because I think it's quite useful to know. There are a lot of people who have done my Discover Your Magic quiz, who have self-assigned as healers. It's the largest segment of all of the people who have done the quiz. When I started with the quiz, and I did it with the general population, that wasn't the case. They were much more balanced. But when I started to move into spiritual communities, the healer rose really quickly. Now, this is what I noticed. When I'm in a space of overwhelm, where there's a lot on, and I'm really, really struggling, I will do the quiz and I will come up as healer. If I do the quiz while I'm in a space of, yes, I'm out there in the world, I'm doing my thing, my energy is balanced, then I will come out as mystic. And it took me a while to realise what was happening here. And I realised that it was because my healer was saying, self-care, heal yourself. And so it was rising up. It wasn't saying, my purpose out there in the world is guided primarily by my healer. I certainly use my healer all of the time, but my mystic tends to drive when I'm in the space of, yes, I can really feel like I'm in the zone right now. So it is possible for you that if you've just done the Discover Your Magic quiz, people can do it and they can find that a different part of the magical self is driving at any given time. But if you come back and you go, oh, it's interesting that the healer comes up for me and I do it and there's another time, it might be that it is your healer deliberately sending out, I talked about the siren, the ecosystem going, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem, that your healer is rising up in order to say, let's move into self-care. So, you'll remember that I said at the beginning, if there's one takeaway, make that takeaway be that the first specialist field that any healer needs to have is the field of self-care. Okay, so let's have a look, because I have seen that we've got some lovely pieces in the chat box. So thank you so much. And I'm just going to go through and make sure that there aren't any questions that I haven't addressed. Pieces that will be useful to share. And this is also a lovely time for us to transition. So this is our new moon session. So funny because it's on a Tuesday, sort of different day to that I'm normally doing. And ironically, I had a hospital appointment that was scheduled for the time when I normally do Magic in Mind, and I was very excited about it, and then it was cancelled. So doing some radical self-care myself at this point while I wait for the next one. So that's why we're here this evening. But we're going to transition into, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the planetary movements for the coming month, and then we're going to be sharing, for those of you who have your runes, you can share the rune that you're working with at the moment, and we'll do a little bit of readings. So feel free to gather your runes and to share them in the chat box. And I'm just going to look through and see if there were any questions and any comments. I can see lots of people have said hello. It's lovely to see so many of you. Suzanne saying a really good gong bar, thunderstorm and being in a forest. Oh, delicious self-care, delicious replenishment. And everyone should do Amplify. Thank you, Suzanne. I think everyone should do Amplify. No, I'm very proud of the programme as it has evolved and developed. And sacred players, you're looking at runes are a huge play system now. And this is the thing, isn't it? In other words, we can change, but we can, play changes and it evolves as well. That's one of the lovely things about it. It might be that you're here. That's cross between the seer and the healer there, no, just the here, is ready for their next evolution. And the mystic's going to help them to find it. And Krista, you said self-care is a boundary that I regularly let slip. And you are not alone. Just to be really clear, you are not alone. It's probably the most common piece for healers. And I think that it is because the world has changed and that there was more time for self-care in most of the history of humanity. I'm not saying it was easy, but there would have been more time and less overwhelm coming through and less, fewer problems that we're aware of all of the time. So being able to say to yourself, I trust that there are other healers out there in the world right now who are going to take care of the problems that I can't, and that my job is to focus on the problems that I can, is the first step in being able to give yourself more permission for self-care. Now that this is about the quality of what I offer, not the quantity. It's about the quality of what I offer, not the quantity. And that there are other people out there if I start to tend to that network of healers. And Suzanne saying, I don't let self-care slip anymore. Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah, used to overgive. You know, it's, like I said, it's such a common problem. Lisa saying, I'm joining a bit late, but if you haven't named some of the systems, can you? Self-care, time rhythms, etc. I'm going to invite you to watch the video, Lisa, because we've gone through systems. That's pretty much been the sort of primary piece for the whole session, has been looking at all of the different systems that the healer works with. Essentially, healers are masters of systems, so they can be anything, and it's about recognizing which systems. The only system I'm saying that we all need to master is the system of self-care that works for us as healers, and then it would be about which systems light your fire and bring you joy. Okay. Essie saying the seer gifting the gift of self-care, the mystic gifting play, the magician gifting boundaries, and the sage gifting humility. Okay, so you were offering a little bit of support there. Thank you. Self-care for the wins, as Caleb. Excellent. And then Essie, you're saying I'm working with 2 runes at the moment, Radar and Bacano. Wonderful. So let me tell you a little bit about the planetary movements, and then we will move on to readings. Now, Esther will see if anyone else brings up Radar and Bacano, because you know I'm a bit more strict these days, and I just do the 1 rune, so we will see what comes up. Fabulous. Okay, so if you do not already have your copy of Sinistara, which has just come out and will be starting on the 5th of July, so on Friday is when we have our new moon, and the Sinistara will covers a 3-month cycle. So you can still order it. It might not arrive for you by Friday, because they're printed on demand, so they take a little bit of time, but you can get them, and I know that lots of people have already ordered, so you've got those. And for those of you who don't know, Suna Star Wheel this is the Suna Star Wheel journal, which you can use standalone with your runic astrology, so that you can work through runic astrology and you can look at all the planetary movements. And for me, this is my primary seership tool, is essentially runic astrology and working with the runes in that way. But there is also a Suna Star Wheel membership, which is online, so it includes meditations and wild voice writing sessions for the new moon and the full moon, the waning and the waxing, so that you can really start to connect with the magical self, is the way that I think about it, about that deep voice of your own inner wisdom. So the two connect together very beautifully. Christy's saying, I ordered my copy yesterday. Hooray, exciting. So I'm going to give you some little, let's say, like some highlights for this current lunar cycle coming up. So we're starting with a new moon in Feiyu. Let me just show you. So at the beginning of our July lunar cycle, you'll see this is where we have our chart of all the planetary movements. And if you're choosing 1 rune for the cycle, then you can put that down here. So you've got my cycle for the coming month. And then on the next page, you see all of the planetary movements. There's a little bit of a summary before you move on to the individual oracles for those different movements. So here we've got our new moon in Feiyu oracle and your journaling piece. So the new moon in Feiyu is very much about how do you channel energy. How do you channel the energy that's coming in all of the time? Feiyu energy can't be stored. No, it must be moving all of the time. It's a little bit like you can't, we'd hope that we wouldn't try and sort of hold on to a bit of our blood. You might think about this as the flow of the blood, the flow of circulation through the body. So there are other parts, obviously, like our bones and our muscles and things like that, that are fixed, and the infrastructure of the cells. But the blood is always moving, and we're in trouble when it stops moving. And this is the flow of Feiyu. So this is very much about how do I channel my energy. It's beautifully in keeping with the theme that we've looked at today of the healer. Now, how do I find that energy in the first place? What vitalizes me? What restores me? What brings me that replenishment? It's a beautiful time for setting new intentions and for really working on that basis of how do I offer my most vibrant, energized self into the world, and connecting with this new moon is a really beautiful way of doing that. Now, all the way through this lunar month, we have a very, very strong energy of initiation. This comes through because the sun and Frigg's chariot, which is Venus, and Odin's chariot, which is Mercury, are moving through the first runes in the Elder Futhark. So through Feiyu and Uruz and Thurisaz. These are really primal energies of being. They're raw energies. They connect us strongly to the earth and to the planet, to the weather systems, and to power as well. different forms of power. Beautiful time for healers to be working with, so we can really draw on those rune energies for profound, deep healing that is in some ways less complex. It's not less powerful, but it's less complex than some of the later ones that we get in the later runes, like manas or ewaz, for example, that we might need a little bit more nuancing. You certainly work with Feyu for healing. You can work with Urus for healing. Thurusas, you can go and do my meditation on YouTube to experience a little bit of how you can start to work healing with Thurusas, because some people get a bit nervous about working with Thurusas for healing, but it's great for initiating and drawing in energy is what we're happening at the moment. Now that's partially because the Sun and Frigg and Odin are at the beginning of the runic cycle, so we're opening a whole new year. This is why Awaken and Mastery start their cycles when they do, because we open with the half month of Feyu. But we also have Tyr's chariot and Ud's chariot. So Ud's chariot moved last lunar cycle, I want to say, into Ingu. So Ingu is the rune of the seed, it's the rune of gestation, and Tyr's chariot is also going to move through this cycle into Ingu's. So whereas Feyu is it's like really flowing, going everywhere, Ingu's is the storehouse. So you might want to think about this as being, as I draw in my Feyu energy, as I get into flow, the energy of Tyr's chariot, of my truth, and the energy of Ud's chariot, of our collective fate, is drawing that in. So I'm contributing as a healer simply by taking care of myself, and I'm charging my batteries is one of the ways that you might look at this. And so what you want to be thinking about at this time is about, what am I charging my batteries with? I like charging my batteries with chocolate, I'm not going to lie, So what I'm working on at the moment is going, if I'm going to charge my batteries with chocolate, let it be 85% green and black chocolate. As few and far between as possible, as an act of replenishment. Is going to be so much better for me than a very, very high sugar content chocolate, for example. So it's bringing that mindfulness there and seeing this as being, yes, there is energy of Feyu flowing through. So you're looking at your needs every day. I'm not going to do something and then it's set and it's going to go on forever. Just because I've done it once. We need to keep going. We need to be replenishing all of the time. But what we are doing is we're setting some very, very important energetic foundations through the Ingu's rune that will have a longer term outcomes. So these are important for those longer term pieces. The Ud's chariot in Ingu's is going to be there for a number of years now. We are now in a place collectively in the world where we've almost sort of, the die is cast to a certain extent. There's not much more we can do. Other than follow the paths that that fate is calling for us, and trust that if you think about it like the network of healers, for example, that is already existing in gestatory form, and it's our jobs to pursue it and uncover it. It's not a time when lots of new things are going to come through. We have to pursue the paths that we've set to a certain extent and allow those seeds to germinate and grow. So the seeds are already in the soil, but we're tending them with our Feyu energy. And the other things, a couple more things I wanted to mention. So one is that we do have some quite potent retrograde energy at the moment that can feel a little bit choppy and a little bit difficult. Those are those moments when we say, okay, if your self-care routine isn't the best, then you will go into overwhelm quicker. You will explode more quickly, or you will lie on the floor in a state of burnout more quickly than if you have done that self-care. And sometimes these times when the planets, I could call them like going on retreat, the deity whatever goes on retreat and says, you're on your own for the moment, friends. Loki goes off and says, you don't have me there to have your backs or to prod you in the right direction or to say the difficult things right now. You've got to do that yourself. It sort of talks about that. So there are some energies that can be challenging. So if you're finding that really difficult, we're going back to self-care again. That's the first thing. And there are lots of other things that you can do, lots of emotional hygiene techniques and other things that, again, are part of the Amplify program that we can't cover here. But have a look at that first. Has some of my self-care slipped? And then finally, we've got a full moon in Perthrow, and that full moon in Perthrow is going to give real opportunity. So Perthrow came into very powerful presence back in 2020. Hela's chariot, Pluto, is in Perthrow currently and will be so until 2029. And it's a time of great change and turmoil and upheaval, but also of opportunity, of karma, of like weird flowing and coming through. And so this full moon brings that. So look out for opportunities that might be unexpected. That, you know, you're particularly if you're sort of saying, okay, I've set my intentions through the new moon. This is what I want to bring in. I'm looking for my network. I'm looking for my collaborators. I'm looking for my next steps. Use the Perthrow full moon as a little window to sort of say, okay, what's the universe presenting that I might not even have noticed? And get your seer spidey senses flowing with that. Okay, so let us have a look at what we've got in terms of runes. So I know that we've got Esther with Rado and Bacano. Pamela, you are working with Wunyo at the moment. Wunyo, Pamela. And Christy, you've got Thurisaz. Ooh, I was talking about Thurisaz, wasn't I? Earlier. Love the Thurisaz rune. And let me see. Esther says, I'll go with Rado. I was answering a question, what runes are you working with? Oh, lovely. Thank you, Esther. No, that's very helpful. And Lisa saying, today I'm working with Tewaz. And your birth rune's Rado as well. It's nice to have those that energy coming through too. Okay, so let's have a little feel into Rado at the moment. So for me, whenever I start with a new moon cycle, I always think about the energy of the stars itself. I think about before we built roads, and I've talked about roads as being one of the ecosystems that in fact our healer selves can be very, very sensitive to how they're working, because they channel energy eventually, don't they? They channel people from one place to another. Before we had roads, we had the landscapes that we would read, we had the herds that we would follow, and we had the stars to guide us. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about, that I don't have mastery of time. And when I think about that as being time in terms of clock time, which is essentially an artificial construct that we have laid over the rhythms that are around us. So I've come to the conclusion that I'm okay with not having mastery of time, because actually I would like to have mastery of rhythm much more. And I feel as if there's almost a freedom being offered to you there, Esther. There's a book which I adore. It's wonderful. It's called The Book of Trespass. I highly recommend it. It's really good. It's quite heavy reading. Not heavy as in it's not fun, but it deals with really serious issues. And one of the things that Nick, I'm going to call him Nick, talks about is, he says that the byways, the bridle paths that we still have in this country are democratic processes in manifestation. They're right there because those were created not by a town planner saying, okay, we're going to create this and it's going to go round the town and that's going to happen this way. They were created by democracy, because one person would choose, oh, this is the most direct route for me from there to there, and then it would require another person to do it and another person to do it, so that the tracks would slowly be worn through and it's sort of agreed, this is the best route for the largest number of people to get us from here to there. And I quite like that. And for me, there's Rado is offering that freedom. It's saying, pay attention to the roads that you follow, because they've been created by others, you know. And don't let yourself be constrained by those boundaries. Let's get a little bit of trespassing going and recognise it's, when we think about spiritual freedom, it's sort of saying, well, what if, even though everyone else is following this route, I need to go off on that one. I'm just going to try, I'm going to explore, I'm going to play, allowing the stars to guide me. And recognising as well, as I was saying with the healer, that sometimes, the lighting that is available to us can make it really difficult for us to actually see the stars, or the walls that have been placed at the edges of the road make it really difficult for us to see that there might be another route. So I feel as if Rado is offering the hidden pathways to you a little bit, Esther. It's sort of saying it might take a bit of work to find the roads that exist outside of the infrastructure of roads that we've created, following the stars and the instincts, and thinking about it in that terms of sort of saying, okay, so where can I go where the lights are dimmer, and where can I go where I can get that big perspective of what the land actually looks like. So there's some truth seeing that the radar rune is offering to you there. So I offer that to you to make of as you will. Pamela, you've got the Wunyo rune. Here, by the way, is the radar rune for people who might not know the runes as much. So Pamela, you've got the Wunyo rune, the rune of joy, of kith and kin and family. It feels like a really nice omen rune for you there. I just really like, I feel as if like it's almost like new bonds are offering themselves to you. So here's our Wunyo rune, and I'm feeling about it sometimes and this isn't, it's not in the ancient lore, but it's one of the sort of modern interpretations that has come through, is this suggestion that it might represent a weather vane that's being like caught by the wind. I want to say that there's something there as well to do with the word vane. No idea if that's true or not. That's like my sage sort of trying to pull out a piece of knowledge from long ago. But it is that sense of, again, similar to Esther, and I often find when I do these readings, these group readings, that they lead one into the other. That it's about following where the wind carries you, and looking for new connections and new relationships and new bonds through that process. So again, there's a bit of an exploration energy coming through for you, Pamela. It's almost standing on the sidewalk, or on the road, and sort of saying, where does the wind want to carry me right now? Which direction is the wind pushing me in right now? And going there, and I'm entering into conversations, and looking for where the energy of Wunyo is in the environment around you, that energy of joy and belonging and happiness. It might take you to a bookshop and to a book of poetry that you are like, I really want to get that one, or to a talk with a stranger that goes in a particular direction, or to a place that you haven't visited before that you go, this is somewhere that I want to frequent more frequently. So it's following the currents of the air to have some sacred play and exploration there for you, Pamela. Now, Christy, you have got the Thurisaz rune. We've got some lovely pointy runes, haven't we? Have you noticed? If you look at them, they've got their, they've all got that little this way. Whoop! I'm dropping runes everywhere. In fact, all of them have got runes, because we've got Tewaz in a minute, but we'll just focus on our Thurisaz rune here at the moment. So the Thurisaz rune is saying, this way, Christy, this way. It's feeling quite a little bit of gravitas coming from the Thurisaz rune today, which is interesting. So I'm feeling the energy of Thor coming through quite strongly with Thurisaz here. So Thurisaz can be that really like wild energy of the giants, of the Jotun coming through, and it can be the thorn and quite a defensive energy. But I'm not feeling that. I'm feeling much more the presence of Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor. I don't know if you do if you've ever done the hammer of Thor ritual before. It's a really nice protective ritual, but I'm not seeing it as being a protective ritual. I'm seeing it as being a creative ritual for you, a demarcation of sacred space. Of the space, what's coming through is the space of the heart. I can only describe it as that sense of, when you talk about people creating their own sacred spaces at home, and they might say, I've got an altar, or I've got a space where I find peace. I feel like this is a claiming of a space where you find power, where you feel powerful and strong. And if you don't have it yet, the Thurisaz rune can help you to find it. If you want to get in touch, because I can't remember at this point where I house the Hammer of Thor ritual. So yeah, if you're interested and you don't have a copy of it, please do get in touch. But one of the things that I get people to do in the little training I do around the Hammer of Thor ritual is to actually imagine for themselves a hammer that they can hold. I'm going to show you mine at this point. So I have an actual hammer that is my blessing hammer. Oh Lord, it's heavy. Here we go. So it's a sort of short-handled, like workman's hammer is the way that it looks for Thor. It's got a Thurisaz rune on it, this particular one. And I love it. It's made by Ted the Viking. It's lovely. And that hammer is charged up and it sits in this magical space. And the intention that it holds is to only allow that really like powerful energy of love and vibrancy and possibility and potential into the sacred space that I've built here, which is where I offer my work from out into the world. So when we talk about, you know, the healer, we've talked a lot about self-care and about gentleness, and it's been a lovely feeling, but this is much more about potency. So this is about creating spaces of potency for yourself, and that might be through art as well, about like looking at what you've got on the walls and really creating a space for yourself where you can feel as if you're standing in your own power through that time. So have fun with that, Christy. And finally, we have got Lisa with the Tewaz rune. So the Tewaz rune doesn't have a sort of a triangle like that, but it does have a hat. It has a triangle hat, and it's certainly a this way rune. It looks like an arrow. So here we go. Here's our Tewaz rune, and its patron is a different deity. So Thurisaz, it does have connections to Thor through its sound, like Thurisaz, but Thursar is what it means. It means sort of giant and thorn as well, whereas Thor is slightly different, but he's certainly connected with Thurisaz. Tewaz is much more explicitly the rune associated with Tyr, who is a lovely god, a really magnificent teacher god, wonderful for healers. No, he has that ability to evolve and to sacrifice and to stand in his truth. Now, he stands in his truth, and I think for me he's talking about the evolution of the soul, that sense of which, and I mentioned a little bit that we are on a path of evolution, and that might mean that things that were true for you yesterday or last week or last month or whatever are no longer true, and that doesn't invalidate what came before. It just says you're ready to step into something new. So Tyr was a king. He, if you trace him all the way back, it's a very ancient history when it's not, it's tenuous connections. He was thought to be a sort of an hermaphrodite deity, who then becomes just a masculine deity, and then he becomes a king, and then he becomes a warrior, and then it's he becomes a priest after he loses his arm. So these moments that we might experience as loss, as wounding, he steps into them fully. He says, okay, what's my next situation? What's my next specialist field that offers itself to me because of this unexpected event of me having to put my arm into the mouth of the Fenris wolf, or whatever it is. He steps forward, such bravery into what is the next situation of his truth. And he doesn't say, oh, it's really easy to do that. He's really clear. It's not really easy to do that. And there are periods of grief that we have to move through to then step into the next version of our truth. But I feel as if that's what this rune is pointing towards. It's saying there is a new unfolding. There is not a new self, because Tyr remains in integrity. He simply says, what do I need to do in order to claim my next version of wholeness that builds on what I was before? And even though other people might see me in some way as being like diminished, as if life, is maybe not followed the path that I expected it to, or people might say, oh, you did that, you gave up that. He's saying, no, that's the outside story. What's the inside story? So what does the heart say? Following the path of the heart comes through. So with Christy, we've got the place of the heart, and with you, we've got the path of the heart. And I think that came through for Esther and Pamela as well. So that's coming quite strongly through as a theme for the coming lunar cycle. So I hope that you found that helpful, everybody. And Pamela's saying the sense of unexpected and seeding at the new moon. Yes, indeed. And Esther's saying, I'll have a look into the Book of Trespasses. Oh, it's a really good book. I love it. It's very intriguing. I'm glad that what I've offered makes a lot of sense to you. Really, I'm pleased with that. And the meditation that you did with Mastery, wonderful. And Pamela is saying the currents of the air, breathing into the way and greeting and meeting the unexpected and the new. Indeed, it's going to be exciting. Christy's saying, I have an altar space that I use daily, but it could use some Thor and Mjolnir energy. So wonderful. It might just be about revitalising that. And Lisa's saying, very helpful. Good. I am pleased. It has been wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much to those of you who have travelled with me through the course of this live. These new moon lives are often lengthy because I do our topic and then we do our stay and play readings as well. So the ones that come later in the month are a little bit shorter, but I think it's worth it. I enjoy coming and spending this time with you and doing our readings together. It has been wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much, and I will see you all again very soon.